Hey guys, how's it going? Anthony Muthuraja here, back with a new lesson. As usual, I was just wondering again, what should I talk about? And a friend of mine, great guitar player from India, Floyd, he made a suggestion that I should probably talk about my perception of 251, the very heavily practiced chord progression among a lot of aspiring jazz musicians. So let's get right to it. A 251 is basically a 2 minor chord, a 1 dominant, and 5 dominant, and a 1 major or 1 minor. There are obviously harmonic variations, but that's something I would like to talk about later on. So that is what it is, fundamentally speaking. Now, we often associate that progression with jazz, but I think that progression has been around for much longer. Like if you listen to the music of Bach and a lot of classical music, a lot of even contemporary classical, you can really sit down and dissect them into chord progressions. But I think that's where we lose the picture of the movement of the piece, of the music. So even for me, like any contemporary song, I don't like to just make it all about a chord progression. It's about a bigger picture. A 251. It's not just a 251. It's basically making your way to the 1, and the 5 is a strong chord to move to the 1, and to move to the 5 you move to from the 2. So that's basically what it is. But I think, in my opinion, I think it is sometimes over exaggerated how important the 251 is, because especially in jazz and improvising, you notice that a lot of musicians, I find myself stuck in this rut sometimes where it's just that 2-5 where I really push myself and the best ideas come out on the 2-5s, because you work that progression out so much that when you have a static chord or when you have progressions which have nothing to do with 2-5s, you're just shaking. So that is why I have a set number of standards that I like to practice, because they don't have your traditional 2-5 progressions all the time. So So let's look at 2-5 in the key of C. It's D minor 7, G7, C major 7. Alright? Now, that is a very obvious 2, 5, 1. Now, in a chordal perspective, instead of thinking 2 minor, 5, 7, 1 major, I can think 2 minor, 2 diminished, 1 major. And that gives a very smooth motion. You take inversions. Right? What else do we have left? Right, so that's, I'm using 3-note voices because it makes the most sense on the 4th string, but you get the idea. You don't have to do a 2, 5, and then 1. Now the same way you can approach soloing. Very simple. So I hate to talk modes, but I'll just talk modes just to keep things clear so we can be on the same page. So D minor 7 is D Dorian, and then the D diminished is D diminished to C major. Right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go up the D Dorian, come back down the D diminished, and go back up the C major. Right, so now you find yourself breaking away from this, or what else? There's so many. You don't, I mean, those are really lovely melodies to practice for sure, to get that down, understand the bebop vocabulary, but essentially you want to develop the skill where the 2/5 is not just that one spot for you to throw vocabulary. It can be used as a place for you to just play melodies, like straightforward melodies, and not just the bebop cliches or just general cliches of 2/5s. It's just like every time there's a dominant flat 9 or diminished, people always do that, almost always, and I struggle with it because, first of all, it sounds nice, but your fingers work. Your fingers take you there. So I'm not really a fan of that, and I tried over the years to just push myself away from that sound. So again, chords. So 2 minor, 2 diminished, 1 major. Same thing with the melodies. You can take 2 Dorian, 2 diminished to 1 major. All right. Of course, you can do 2 minor, then the dominant, back to the major. But I generally think it's best to think less and to jump less as well. So instead of thinking D Dorian, G mixolydian, I just think D Dorian, D diminished. Or even simpler, D minor, D diminished. Or just D minor to C major. There's nothing wrong with it as long as you phrase it right, as long as you play it with good intention. All right, so now that is that. Now I just want to talk about one simple substitution, which is the altered scale over the G dominant chord. So G altered is basically A flat melodic minor, right? So now what we're going to do is, instead of doing D minor, D diminished, we're going to do D minor, A flat melodic minor, right? So 2, 5, 1. Okay? Now I can further simplify this by saying, forget about the Dorian, just do melodic minor, D melodic minor, A flat melodic minor to C major. Okay, but what we're going to try to do is, we're going to jump scales, but we're not going to jump notes. So I'm going to play 4 notes from one scale and play the next 4 notes of the following scale. So D minor, A flat minor, C major. That sounds nice already, right? Okay, so now you can just do combinations of this. You can take 2 notes or 3 notes from one scale and the next 3 from the other, and so on and so forth. You just start messing around with this idea, you start to get all these colorful sounds, right? And this is using the altered scale, and again, you don't have to use the altered scale like, oh sorry, although that's beautiful, but right, so those are various ideas using D minor, D melodic minor, and A flat melodic minor to C major. Now, to push it up a notch, instead of going to C major, we'll go to A melodic minor, right? Now, this is going to give you a very tense sound because you'll have the sharp 11 and the sharp 5. Nothing wrong with it, but you just have to phrase it right. So D minor, A flat minor, A minor, melodic minor. That's a pretty cool lick. Ah. Ah. Right, so those are just some random ideas I'm just trying to come up with on the fly. So that's just one example of a substitution. There are a ton of options actually. So once you're comfortable with that, the D melodic minor, A flat melodic minor, A melodic minor, what you can actually start to do is imply the A flat melodic minor all the way to the A melodic minor. But that takes quite a bit of practice because you need to get used to all those out notes which don't belong in the chord at all. So I thought I'll keep this fairly simple. If you do have any suggestions or questions or complaints or whatever it is, do drop me a message on YouTube or Facebook, Instagram. And also, I really encourage you to just, as much as you practice 2-5-1s, cut down the practice on 2-5-1s too. Take the 2-5-1 ideas and try to place them elsewhere in a progression or in a song, so you don't confine yourself to just shining on the 2-5 and then you just fumble everywhere else. So yeah, I hope you got something out of this. Until next time, guys. Peace.